Directed by Matthew Goodhue, we are talking Slotherhouse. Now, this is a cute and cuddly slasher killer animal movie in the vein of Zombievers, if you have seen that. I would try and give this a more accurate liken, though, to two slightly less known movies, I suppose. This is basically, to me, Revenge of the Nerds meets Munchies. I don't know if you're familiar with those two movies, but you mash them together, you pretty much get this. And this is a kind of a horror comedy, light on the horror, high on the kind of the zaniness and the bizarre, I suppose. What's the story? Well, it focuses on this sorority house in America full of, teenage girls heading off to college and that. And one of these girls decides that she wants to kind of up her social standing by getting an exotic pet. So she ends up, perchance, running into this kind of, poacher ultimately, but she just thinks he's an exotic pet dealer. And she gets this sloth, which has been captured in the wild. But unbeknownst to her, this sloth seems to be super intelligent, super capable, able to understand modern technology and everything, essentially, and also has a psychotic streak. This kind of cute and cuddly animal on the outside, it obviously goes back with her to her sorority house and cuts a swathe through practically anyone who steps foot in this house. What will happen? Well, you'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss. So, yeah, certainly a not one to be taken seriously, you might say. So if you like a zany horror movie, a high concept fun idea, then you may want to check it out. I mean, comedy's obviously very kind of subjective to one's individual tastes. So whether you like this, it's going to depend if you think the movie Munchies was a good time. Let me just say that. What can I say that works? There's a deliberate attempt here to stay away from CGI. A practical puppet that is kind of used for this sloth that they call Alpha. Not the most realistic puppet, let's just say that, but I like the fact here we have obviously something practical on screen rather than kind of a CGI. It does give it that kind of like that kind of 80s vibe, very much like when we had Munchies, Gremlins, Critters, all those kind of Ghoulies kind of style movies. It sort of feels right at home with that, albeit obviously the film surrounding it is a more highly polished, obviously modern movie, but it definitely has that that vibe, considering it's a sorority house, and those type of screwball kind of comedies were all the rage in the 80s as well. So there's definitely kind of 80s kind of vibes here. It is a low budget movie, but I feel for some reason it kind of feels like it's probably more of a mid-budget movie in production value in certain ways. It looks very glossy, as I've mentioned. We have a high body count in this film. There's plenty of kind of victims and a certain kind of zaniness, this sense of humour. It's kind of quite fast-paced movie, despite the fact that the whole point of the sloth is that it's kind of quite slow. But therein lies the joke. There's also lots of kind of movie horror references and things like that I think you'll appreciate. Little kind of nods to kind of famous kind of horror movies and kind of sequences within that I think fans of horror movies may be able to pick out. Other people, it will just go over their heads and things. There's a bevy of beauties here, lots of kind of pretty ladies to kind of look at. And obviously, if you like your kind of screwball comedy, you might find this kind of this concept quite funny. I mean, if a killer sloth sounds like it's going to be a barrel of laughs to you, then you may want to check it out. If you're looking for any type of sophistication, however, not that I expect you would if you're going to pick up a film like this, then I certainly suggest you look elsewhere. I mean, even for me, I was pretty much eyes going into it expecting what this movie was going to be about, but I didn't think it'd be quite as kind of off the wall, maybe, or maybe not off the wall. That's not, because that makes it sound like it subverts your expectations. This just kind of goes far more into it than I was expecting. I wasn't expecting this movie to be quite as silly, quite as goofy. But like I've said, that's the subjective side of comedy, whether you kind of enjoy that thing or not. But yeah, I suppose it's a kind of well put together movie on a kind of a technical level. I actually quite like the music in it. That was kind of quite fun. But I got to be honest with you, I found this movie quite grating and quite kind of tedious, to be honest, despite this film being very kind of fast-paced in many ways, and lots of kind of like kills and lots of kind of like screaming girls and stuff. It was just like, to me, this was like a one-joke film stretched over a feature-length movie. And, you know, I think movies like Zombievers have done it better. And it's just, you're not going to be expecting, you know, realism in a film like this. You know, you're not expecting this movie to really iron out all those kind of plot holes, but it's just like, I mean, you're asked to accept quite a lot of this, that this sloth is essentially sentient and completely probably has the intelligence level of most humans without any type of learning ability or anything like that. For no reason, you've just got to accept it. You know, so just that it's, I don't know, maybe they should have said there was like some sort of like toxic dump or something. I just give it some kind of BS reason. To have no reason how this sloth is so, you know, so capable, even for a kind of a silly, zany movie. It just seems an oversight to me. But that's what they wanted to go with, so there it is. But it's kind of like a one-joke pony, as I say, and to me the joke got pretty old. But the other thing I would say is I have to say I really wasn't liking any of the characters in this movie. Everyone is so cliche. I mean, again, it's playing into certain stereotypes. But we have our kind of good girl who was our main protagonist, but I found her so bland. I mean, she's just the typical, you know, oh, good girl, I'm going to go against the kind of the bully, and it's just like, oh, there's nothing else to her. There's just nothing else there. One positive thing I would say this movie does do, that I'll give it credit for before I kind of go back to my negatives, is it does actually have a message about not having exotic pets and kind of not buying from, you know, poachers and things like this. So I do feel that although the movie is obviously making fun of this kind of what is perceived to be a very kind of harmless animal, I like the fact they do kind of almost stop the movie and say, you know, this is not okay in real life. So there was that. But getting back to what didn't work for me, yes, yeah, the characters are very bland, especially our main character, who I just found so kind of just vanilla generic. It just wasn't an interesting character. But even like the mean girl was just your stereotypical mean girl. You've kind of got the kind of like the butch best friend and all that, and I even forgot our main character had a boyfriend. You know, he just kind of like written out the story until right at the end again, and then we have a smattering of like no personality kind of other characters. They went for a PG rating, a PG-13 rating, and as such, it's a largely bloodless affair. Considering it's actually quite a high body count, most of it is off screen. Most of it is just kind of suggested, or you hear noises, or kind of like, you know, tumbling around. There's very little actual kind of like gore in this, and I think that maybe would have been a way to go to make this, you know, have this kind of cute and cuddly, you know, slow animal, and then it being a real kind of gore fest may have made this a bit more of like a cult film in a way, and a bit more of a kind of like a memorable film. But it just is so vanilla. The plot is exactly what you think is going to happen. I mean, it's just like the idea here of having this kind of fun, cute animal having a killer spirit. That's the only thing they've got. That is the only thing that I would say that it is kind of makes this movie as like a pitch. Everything else is just kind of like exactly how you think it's going to be, with bland characters, you know, a bland story, you know, bland kills, albeit there's plenty of them. To me, it was a bit of a slog. I wasn't expecting it to be quite as unmemorable and flavourless than it actually ended up being. I didn't hate the movie. It was like, I think there's maybe an audience that could enjoy it, but you've got to be very undemanding and just be like, you know, oh, comedy. Yes, I love the most basic levels of comedy or something. You know, that's if you like this film. That's what I think. Yeah, I'll give it a 4 out of 10. It's a below average film for me. I wouldn't say it's like a complete car wreck. There are things here that I think are anything in concept are good, and I think the concept is fun, but it's just kind of more of a missed opportunity. I think more could have been done with this, to be honest. 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.